Oh, it's got us live. I didn't have to do anything. Super. All right, we're good to go.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to this edition of AI Insights. Our topic today is how do we get better results from AI? What does that mean? Like, what kind of bots are they? And we're going to explore that today with Steven Bowman, is an expert on AI, long time um, I'll say investor, inventor, entrepreneur, programmer, in software and all things related to software. And he's been diligently down the rabbit hole with AI. And so he's an ideal person to help work into this. I'm Mike Russell, organizational engineer, advisor, management consultant, also have been in leadership positions at times. So we're teaming together to give you some insights into AI from all sorts of angles. So let's go to that topic. So most of us, think if we haven't had exposure, when we talk about AI, it's a thing. It's like there's an AI thing over here, right? But now, especially with the advances in technology and thinking around it, that's not the case. So there's all kinds of different bots. So Stephen, what are we talking about here? What's this deal with V's and T's and manager bots and whatever?
I love it. Thank you, Mike. Um, so it's interesting because it just came up in conversation again this morning. Absolutely wonderful. Um, I've, I've, we've been working on agentic architecture, big word, really not that tough to understand. It's how do we make generalized platforms like OpenAI, who produce generative results, interact with something that is very, very, very specific. So the analogy that I use quite regularly is like in a hotel. So every now and again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel for work or business, or sometimes just my business mastery group, which is sure it's business, but it's a lot of pleasure and meeting people and having fun and exploring, which is some neat stuff. So I'm a big coffee guy. I love espresso. In fact, it's one of the first things I enjoy in the morning quite regularly. And I found myself in a hotel a couple of months ago, wandering out into the lobby looking for coffee because the stuff they put in the room does not qualify as coffee, as any coffee lover knows. And I bumped into somebody in the lobby and I said, where can I get a double espresso? And it turned out that that was the concierge. And the concierge does not know how to make me an espresso, but he knows where the barista is. And she was kind enough to walk me right down to the shop. And sure enough, I got my espresso. So the reason why I bring this up and what the analogy stands for and where we go with this is the concierge is a V-shaped bot. Very wide in knowledge at the top. He knows where the bar is. He knows where the kitchen is. He knows who to talk to when you need a coffee, but he's not a subject matter expert. He's not actually going to make the coffee. Um, but the barista, on the other hand, who he handed me off to, thankfully, um, she knows her job, right? She's very task specific. She can make the coffees on the menu, and she might know a thing or two about the hotel. But if I ask her, hey, what's the going rate for a room for the next week, or can I get a group rate? She's not going to have any idea, right? She's not that specialist. She is a T-shaped bot. She's broad enough to know the hours of operation and how to make every single coffee, but she can also make my espresso perfectly, which she did, and I'm very appreciative. So when we talk about coordinating AI systems and how to get the most benefit out of AI, what we're finding is that we really need V-shaped bots, kind of managers and directors and evaluators. And then we need T-shaped bots, which are the subject matter specific AI bots that perform the actual function that we need completed. So that's
Okay,
T's and
and
V's.
so one thing you told me that helped me remember is another way to think about T-shaped bot is T is for task, right?
T is for
Task, not
task.
tasks, in plural, but a task or, closely related things. And
Absolutely.
as you said, the V is like the concierge or the manager bot. Now, I have to say that, from a layman's perspective, you talk about a manager bot, in other words, AI managing AI, that seems a little scary. And what exactly is going on here?
Great. Um, so first and foremost, there's a lot of conversation out there. I've heard all ends of the spectrum. Is AI alive? Is it breathing? Does it have consciousness?
Right.
And I can give you my opinion on all of those things, but it really doesn't matter because it's just my opinion. Here's what I'll say. It's software. So one way or the other, we have to help the software with instructions. Now, the old way we used to do that in coding, right, was if it's Tuesday and you're wearing blue slacks and it's a full moon, then go this, right? If
Right.
else or if then type logic. Um, and I have no doubt that that's still happening in the background of AI. But the way that they put the software together, it's mimicking response, it's mimicking consciousness, it's mimicking decision making, it's mimicking evaluation. And it does a pretty good job in a lot of cases. But one thing that I'll throw out there right now that is absolutely huge, and that is the need for context. You have to provide a lot of context to AI, especially on those V-shaped bots, those manager bots. It's not just task-specific information. You have to provide it context. You have to provide it examples to really get it to understand, quote unquote, understand what the output should be.
All right. So it's not really, let me try to say it another way. So it's not really looking at the situation and deciding on its own. It's looking at the situation and according to the parameters or the criteria or whatever that's been provided, it then says, oh, okay, based on this or this pattern or whatever, then I should go invoke this task, right?
You just said, I think, what is the magic word, and that is pattern, 100%. So the way that these models work is you take words, right? They scrape the internet. You take words that people are providing. You take words in the form of they transcribe or you transcribe
Mhm.
conversations, and they look at the order in which the words are used. They look at the order in which your words are used, and they pair together. It's kind of like a gamble. They're making a bet on what the next word or next phrase and order should be to answer your question properly based on all of the information that they scraped off the internet and all of the learning that they've done since then, which is no small amount of data. I mean, if you think about, right, there's one thing to scrape the entire internet. There's another thing to be able to index and use all of the conversations that people have had with AI since it came out. So they've got a vast, vast, vast collection of conversations, of ordering of words, and patterns. That word that you use, our pattern of speech. And again, I liken it a lot to that old, back in my day, it was like a big coloring book, and it had paragraphs in it, and you filled in the words, Mad Libs, good old Mad Libs.
Ad libs, so yes.
I liken AI a lot to Mad Libs, and that's how when you hear AI hallucinated, is because it put the wrong word into the blank spot. It bet wrong and put the wrong word
Oh,
in the
okay.
blank spot based on pattern. That's all that is.
Okay.
It's wrong.
That helps. Now, one question, and I think you said did you have some visuals you wanted to show today or not? I mean, it's up to you.
Not for this one, I don't think. Oh, I
Okay,
do.
all right. Well, that's good. I just wanted to check. I couldn't
Okay,
remember it. So when you say, I mean, when you said the mouthful or agentic architecture,
sure.
so agentic is really agent,
Agent.
right? Like customer service agent or something like that. Is there anything else you want to say around it to help people understand what agentic architecture means, from
Sure.
a general perspective?
Absolutely. So I did have you know what? I take that back. I will jump in here. Start
Okay, well, let's talk about the agentic architecture first, and we can
Sure
jump to
thing.
that for a moment.
So I'll jump into a slide, and I think it'll help explain
Okay.
explained agentic architecture. So I did have one here that we can drop, and here it is. Yay. Okay. So when I start talking about AI systems, I really break them into two primary buckets. The first being general. Again, that's kind of a lot of that's driven by scientists. It can do multiple tasks, but nothing exceedingly perfect. And they mimic understanding. And examples of those are going to be things like ChatGPT, which everybody knows, and IBM Watson, which everybody's forgotten. But IBM Watson, look for that name in the future. They're I wouldn't count IBM out of this race by a far stretch. The opposite side, the flip side of that coin, are narrow AI systems. So those are usually driven by industry, right? And they are, like you said, they're T-shaped, they're task specific, and they're very practical in their approach. So a couple of examples would be things like autonomous vehicles, right? If you ask an autonomous vehicle to write you a blog post, an autonomous vehicle AI system to write you a blog post, it would probably choke. It wouldn't know what to do. Facial recognition software, another perfect example. These are models and AI systems that have been specifically trained for those very specific tasks. Generals are Vs, narrows are Ts. So,
At the risk of making it a little bit too complex, facial recognition like is one task, but in a sense, the autonomous vehicle, aren't those lots of single task things? Like I need something to sense where I am, and then I need something to be able to steer. And
you
so
got it.
it's still task focused, but maybe there's some underlying T-shaped bots in there too, right?
Probably.
They're connected because they don't, I mean, they're connected because they don't necessarily need something to manage them because the signals go directly between them, right? From one to another, like somebody passing something from one person to another. They don't need a manager to do that, right?
Could be. So there are instances where T-shaped bots will pass data to each other. There are instances where 3 or 4 bots, or maybe a single bot, T-shaped bot, will handle one portion of a workflow and then hand that data back to the manager. The manager will hold on to it. Another section of workflow will happen where T-shaped bots are handing data to each other for specialized tasks. And then they usually all goes back to the manager that evaluates all that was provided and then provide some kind of recommendation or output or things of that
Okay.
nature. Yeah,
So
good.
and if I understand correctly, then we don't always need the general or V-shaped bots, but if we're doing something other than just a general discussion with ChatGPT or something language oriented, we probably always need the T-shaped bots, right? The question is, do I need something else coordinating them beyond just them kind of working directly together? Is that kind of the way it goes?
Absolutely. And no, that's spot on. So managing a T-shaped bot, whenever we've got multiple T-shaped bots, we usually add a manager, a V-shaped bot, to help coordinate those activities. If the task can be done by one T-shaped bot, it can either work on its own standalone, or we manage it with rule-based software. But that rule-based software is usually very, very thin, meaning we're not writing this huge program to do the work. That's what the T-shaped bot is for.
Okay, got it.
So
So anything else you want to go through as far as V versus T or general
great,
versus?
yeah, great. So I get this question a lot. What's an agent?
Back to my agentic
Yeah,
architecture. Okay.
exactly. What is an actual agent, right? How do you define an agent? So I define an agent as a software program. It's literally it's a piece of software. It could be a piece of software that's powering a robot. So people are like, wait a minute, I thought an agent was a robot. It could be, but realistically, that software could run on its own somewhere else. So what types of things do agents do? What's their defining stuff? They interact with the local environment. They collect data to perform tasks, and that data can be in the form of just about anything: pictures, video, words, text, etc. They can perform a task without human intervention. Very important feature. Augmentation, automation, those are some of the promises of generative AI, right? They employ learning models. They with the feedback that you provide in ChatGPT, when it provides you with an answer and you say, thank you, this is awesome, they understand that as positive feedback. When you respond and say, this is the worst thing you've ever produced, they understand that as negative feedback, and they're able to understand, they're able to mimic understanding in the way that this is positive and this is negative. And here's a tip for anybody listening to this right now. If you want to supercharge the results you're getting from AI, I highly recommend providing examples of positive outcomes to your prompts. Give it examples of when it worked great last, or what you want the end product to look like, because AI is going to mimic that. And that's part of those learning models. You're giving it examples of what you want, and it's gonna use that data to help produce a result similar to what you want. It uses collected data to adapt over time or iterations. I remember when I was a kid or younger in my life, there was always this concept of 10,000 hours. You need to work on something for 10,000 hours to master it. And in the world of computing and AI, I'll swap out hours for iterations and just say 10,000 iterations on something, whether that takes you a year or 5 months or whatever it is. That really provides you with enough experience to master a subject. And AI is not a lot different. The more information you throw at it and the more times it gets feedback and learns on that learning model, the better the results are going to be. So
Okay.
with these systems, you'll see that in ChatGPT, right? The longer it's been out, the models come out that are different. We go from 3.5 to 4 to 4.0. They're getting better because it's adapting to the feedback that it gets to know whether it's doing a good job or not.
Right. So are the first three things on this slide, well, I guess 1, 2, 3, and the last one, that can describe software that's not AI related, right? Is the key part of this the learning models and using the feedback to get better? I mean, because software, if you don't know software, right? You've got something that's got software in it, and it's kind of doing stuff, right? It's asking, I'm giving it input, it's doing tasks, it can do tasks maybe without my intervention.
Yep.
But the essential difference is the AI is adapting, but within limits.
Adapting within limits. And I think another big thing is right, the generative portion. That key word, generative AI, is something that I think is either misunderstood or lacking in understanding in most people. And what I mean by that is one of the other 4 big promises for AI is hyper personalization. These being able to take just a little bit of data and creating a personalized message just for you that you might think a human wrote. And the reason why is it goes back to that learning model of understanding this is the tone, these are the details, put it together with the patterns of words that we found out there that match this tone, that match these details, and produce a result. If you think about the amount of time that it takes to write a personalized message that only has 3 or 4 details in it yourself, compared to how quickly you can produce something like that in AI, it shows me the generative power of AI is really the crux. It's really the power behind it. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. So, but you're talking about generative from it's generating new options, or what I say, maybe not new, but different options based on the feedback I'm giving it, right? Well, no, I want it more like this, or I want it less like that, or can you add this sort of thing to it? And it's not generating something completely on its own volition. It's responding to what you're asking it and the feedback it's given based on all the data it's collected off the internet over time, et cetera, right?
Yes, yes. And it'll go wild if you let it, right? If you give it guardrails, it'll stay within those guardrails most of the time. And I'll go back to what we talked about just a couple minutes ago. One of the best ways that we've found to really keep it within those guardrails is to provide examples of positive outcomes, provide examples of what
Right.
you want it to generate. And it'll mimic those. They won't be exactly the same. And that's where the generative power of this comes in, where it'll put its own flavor on it. And then, of course, you can change tone, you can change inflection, you can change subject, but it still keeps the gist of what you wanted to produce pretty close, pretty tight.
Right. Well, I was thinking of, in a sense, trying to draw the distinction where some people may think that AI can be harmful. Well, it can be harmful if you take the information it produces and uses it in the wrong way, but it's also not the same as if you were working with it one afternoon. It's not going to, the computer's not going to wake up at 2 a.m. and say, Steven, I had an idea. Quick, wake up. I had an idea, right? And because it's generating stuff. I mean, it's out there thinking on its own, right? You're still, even though you're saying you train it better by giving examples, right? And you're giving it a better path to follow or to know how to follow to give you better results,
Yep.
it's still not completely capable yet of creating on its own, in a sense.
No, no, not at all. You can go to AI and you can goof off and you can say, hey, can you write me a haiku about, this gorgeous sunny day? And sure, it'll go off and ramble and do creative things. But it's not going to go and do that on its own. It has to be quite literally prompted, right? It has to be invoked. It's just like any other tool where it has to be set in motion by our thoughts, desires, needs, etc., in order to take action.
Okay.
Now, we'll pair software with AI and do some pretty crazy things that'll happen in the background, but that didn't happen on its own. It doesn't diagnose a problem that we've got without us asking it and then come up with a solution. Not
Right.
yet.
Okay. All right. Great.
So real fast, the AI agent can operate independently or it can operate with other agents, right? It will play fair with others. And here's another big key that we've found that I think a lot of people overlook, and this is where there's a lot of power in being able to implement AI in your business, whatever situation. It'll operate and can play fair with other software, with other programs, with other data systems. If it's connected with an API, we can get data in and out of those systems and to AI to analyze, evaluate, make recommendations, build comparisons against industry standards, competitors. We can automate and augment a lot of these processes because almost everything these days is built on an API. So we can go and get data, do something with it, provide data back. And that's really, that's an agent. That's what agents do. I think I talked about these guys before. So we talked about a manager bot. In the human workplace, there's product support. Maybe there's a receptionist, there's a marketing team, an accounting team. And then you'll see on the far right there, there's a bunch of tools that all of these users have, right? They've got software, they've got the web, they might have some digital courses. Of course, they've got ChatGPT. Requests come into the manager, the owner, whomever it is. They hand off to the appropriate human workplace element who uses whatever tools they have at their disposal and then provides answers back. Well, it's really no different in the agent world. So T's and V's, jump into T's and V's real fast. Sorry, I missed one slide, but we talked about it before, right? V's are concierge. A T is more like a barista. V's are a manager. T's are product support, something very, very specific. V's have a wide knowledge base. T's have a subject matter specific spike where they specialize. V's are creative or generative. T's are more like, hey, I know product specifications. So on part C, it's a 17mm screw with, R20 thread and whatever. The V's probably won't know that. V's mimic logic, reason, and insight. T's are very reliable when we make them prescriptive. Hey, I need you to do this one thing and stay right here and do exactly that. I liken V's a lot to cooking. I'm a foodie. And what I mean by cooking is you can turn down the heat. You can substitute half and half for cream. You can substitute ingredients, right? I don't have any cornstarch. I'm just going to use flour instead. There's all kinds of shifting. There's all kinds of adjustment that you can make with cooking that with a tea, they're more like baking. You can't make a lot of those adjustments. Teas are much more scientific where in a baking analogy, if you don't have the right ratio to flour to water or sugar to yeast, the bread won't rise. That's just how it works. And again, teas are very, very, very prescriptive in the way that they need a set amount of input. It's got to be in certain formats, etc. A lot more flexibility than just with software. But if you take it outside of that scope, it's not going to work. I liken V's to a collaboration partner. I liken T's to ideal for task, T for task. If you're familiar with the Planet Perry world, I liken V's to an alchemist, kind of a creative individual, and I liken T's to a producer, so someone who's heads down, very interested in task-specific work. Here's my bot architecture. Again, I think we've touched on enough of these, but really what I want to get across in this slide is that the T-shaped bots in the middle are no longer a department or a generalist. If you look, you'll see that instead of a marketing individual they're now an RFM email specialist. Instead of an accountant, they're now a P&L analysis specialist. Now, we can have a series of T-shaped bots where they do P&L analysis, they do end-of-month analysis, they do reporting, they do whatever it is. But an accounting generalist is going to know how to do all of that at a reasonable level. But our T-shaped bot here knows how to do P&L analysis exceedingly precisely. And that's all they do.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it for presentation there.
Right.
Hopefully that got those ideas across.
I think so. I mean, we'll probably be coming back to this because many of the applications we'll be talking about will invoke V or T or some combination. So, we will expand on it some in future sessions. So, one of the things that we want to do as many sessions as we can, depending on what the news is what are the things happening in the AI world? Like, what are some of the news reports, new products, or whatever? Because they're coming fast and furious. So what are a few things that are happening that caught your notice, and why did they catch your notice in the last week or two?
Sure. I've been very deep in learning and using and evaluating platforms that support text to video. There's a couple out there. I'll just drop some names here. There's a couple out there that say that they do human avatars like you and I in real time, where you can ask it a question. It goes to AI, generates an answer, comes back, and actually converses, and their mouths move, and they can wave their hands and raise eyebrows and do a bunch of magic in real time. Now, the name of that company is Heygen, Heygen. I have not actually been able to confirm that they can do that work because when I go to sign up to the page that would allow me to test that, I get like a 404, right? Page not found.
They're full or else they're not ready for you yet, I
Right.
guess.
Now, one thing that I did notice, and this is where it gets fun, is that at the top of their website, it says, press release. Heygen was just awarded $60 million in VC funding. So I'm pretty sure what that means is that they pre-sold the ability to do it so that they could get some VC funding. Good for them. Good, you guys go. Heygen does have some really interesting text to video work that's out there, but there's some other guys out there. Luma, Dream Machine, is another pretty good one. I haven't used their paid product. I used their free product, and I was testing a bunch of these. This is where it gets fun. This is where I geek out. I was testing a bunch of these, and I wanted them each to create me a video of first person driving down the highway, looking out my window at a billboard that had words on it, and nobody could do it. And I don't know how much you've ever messed with Dolly, but Dolly will put words on your images, and the words are never right. They're misspelled. They're in a different language. The letters don't
All
work.
right. So yeah, right. So for those who aren't familiar, that Dali, just like Salvador Dali, the artist, is a takeoff on that, is an image generation, not video generation, but
Right.
often so if you ask it to make an image of you looking out the window of the car with a billboard, what typically has happened, most people have noticed, is that the text and the billboard is never quite right somehow, right?
Exactly.
Now, apparently, I've seen some things on LinkedIn in the last week or two where people are reporting that, they've made some improvements and they're getting much better results. But it was notorious early on in beta is doing interesting images, but never quite getting the text right.
Exactly. Exactly. So whatever changes to their model, it's now become ubiquitous, because all of these, maybe a month ago when I started this research, nobody could get the billboard right.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Luma
interesting.
Dream Machine just got the billboard right for me. So I've literally got it's about a 12-second video of somebody driving down the highway. Their view pans off to a billboard and it says exactly what I ask it to, which is your message here. But Luma Dream Machine, if you're into that kind of stuff and you wanna look, Luma Dream Machine's a good one. There's some
Spell
other
Luma for them, just
Luma Dream
Luma.
Machine. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Another good one, it's a little cartoony, so it's not my taste, but there's a company out there named Soul Machines, exactly how you would expect it to be spelled. And they
Yeah,
have,
so in this case, I'll just make it clear though, because the English language is not exactly the most precise. Or oh well, I won't get into that side story another time. So soul here, we're not talking SOLE, we're talking SOUL
very good
machines.
call, right? It's not Beatles Rubber Soul.
Right. So SOUL machines, soul machines.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I just want to make it clear.
Um, these guys have real-time avatar interaction, but they're cartoons. And it's actually pretty good. And if you're looking for a real-time text-to-video avatar that can interact with an API for voice or an API for generative AI, ChatGPT or Gemini or whomever, these guys, they're a good candidate for it. For us, it wasn't exactly what we were looking for because of the cartoony stuff. So instead, we decided to go with a company called Synthesia, Synthesia, and I'm probably butchering how to pronounce that word correctly. These guys offer text to video generation using a series of avatars from their collection, and we found it to be absolutely satisfactory. We can generate real videos based on text that we input. We can add emotions and maneuvering, literally hands in the air, raised eyebrows,
Well,
all of this type of activity into our video and generate the video soup to nuts from start to finish. If we've got a script, it takes less than 5 minutes. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's as personalized and as tailored as it needs to be. So hyper personalized video email messaging to prospects. Yes, they can actually record a video of you and create your likeness, both in look and sound. And you can start sending videos to prospects or videos to your clients without ever having to record a video. Pretty amazing stuff. And that's available right now. So that's text to video that I've been using quite a bit lately. And we're using that for Elite Digital Assistant.ai, which is a rabbit hole that we'll be going down at a different time for sure. Um,
So
let's see
I'm
what else.
guessing with, sorry, I just one last idea on the text to video. So I'm assuming that an end result of this would be I could do a prototype of a movie by feeding in the script, as long as the script had, instead of the actor inferring how to look or facial expressions, as long as I add the expressions or whatever that the avatar needed to do, then I could generate a prototype movie, right?
Absolutely. Um, They also have a series of expressions and movements that you can add wherever you like. It's in the editor. You add your script and then you add your expressions, etc., directly into the script interface so that you see it in real time as you step through your script. Pretty
Oh,
neat
cool.
stuff. Yeah,
That's
pretty
really cool.
pretty
So,
neat
I
stuff.
mean, I could make instead of laboring and all the editing you used to have to do and trying to get people to, to understand your intent, if I can write a script and add that in, then I could do a short pretty easily, right? Like a 3 or 5 or 10 minute
Absolutely.
short movie or short
Absolutely.
video.
They also have all of the other video editing type things that you would expect, right? You can add text, you can add images. In fact, the background behind our video avatar is a video. So the background is purposely, intentionally light and open to almost look like a showroom. And in the behind the first frame of the showroom is a plant that is actually moving slightly in the background. It's a video of a plant moving in the background to give depth and to give
Yeah.
perception of realism.
Hmm.
And it's right out of the box. They offer all of this stuff. It's really, 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 really neat if you're into that.
I'm just thinking it's a little broad because we were talking about marketing, right? But I also think this will even turbocharge even more like explainer videos or things
Yes.
for classrooms, but
Yeah.
also just from an entertainment perspective. If I have an idea, hey, I'd like to do a short show on this, well, now you can pretty much do it because you don't have to worry about trying to hire the actors or go on location. I mean, you're within limits, right? I mean,
Sure.
you've already explained, there's still hurdles to overcome, but just for those who are listening who may not be into software or marketing per se, if you're on doing other creative sides, sounds like an awesome tool, from a media perspective.
I can see training. I can see, like I said, hyper personalized responses to prospects, emailing, that kind of stuff. Um, I can also see other really, 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 I'll just say cool, really cool implementations of this, such as they've got a ton of different language support. So I'm thinking about doctors and medical professionals that need to explain something complicated. I go back to like my grandfather had open heart surgery, and this was years and years ago. And they gave us a DVD or a CD, right? Take this home and watch the video. Well, it came in one language.
Hmm.
So the doctor could easily produce a video that is explaining what he's doing, what the steps are, and immediately turn it into 47 languages and have it available for anybody at any time, live, right then and there. Just simple things like that. Um, I think it really opens up a world of possibility for busy people who are doing something very important to relay information one time, and then in this case, have it translated into multiple languages or reused across a wide swath for greater adoption.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. Um, I'll throw one more out there. I played with it a little bit. Um, if you go to ae.studio, that's their web address, https ae.studio. They've got what essentially equates to an idea generator. an AI response idea generator. You go there, you explain your idea, you give it as much information as you want. You press a button. Of course, you have to opt in. They want your email address. They want your contact info, right? And then a couple minutes later, you get a PDF in your email. And the one that I got back was like a 26-page PDF outlining all of the steps and strategies and implementation points and plans for the idea that I threw out there. And in looking at the fine point in the details, it says, hey, we're going to share this with other members that we think it fits with. And I got an email from a third party out in the universe that said, I really liked your idea. Can we talk about it? So again, they've got their little angle, which is, hey, we can probably help you with an implementation on this. But they also opened up a community aspect, which I thought was really neat. AE.studio.
Well, it is different. That could really sort of change also or add another dimension to the market to people looking for ideas for products or businesses or something else, licensing of that, right? Because now I can get help in refining it. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was having a fun conversation just last week with somebody about the idea of a fractional executive. So it was actually, I was having a conversation with Perry, and Frank were on the phone. And the conversation kind of took a turn that I didn't expect. But so everybody's probably heard of a fractional executive, a fractional chief technology officer, or a fractional chief marketing officer, or in my experience, it's generally been subject matter specific. So I'm a company, I need a CTO, so I'm going to go find somebody who's a technology guy or an information guy, gal, been that way for their career, but I only need a sliver of their time. And the idea that we were batting back and forth was, I've heard of lots of CTOs and CMOs and that type of role as being fractional, but I've never heard of a fractional CEO, where someone had a great idea and they started a business with it, but they realized, wait a minute, I'm not a CEO and I don't want to be a CEO. I'd rather just stay in my cubby and do the product development type stuff and do the work type stuff. And I need to bring in a CEO who's got that huge vision and can help propel this business forward. Normally, what I've found is producers kind of stay in that producer role and their businesses hit a certain plateau and they're happy with it and they stay there. When I saw this platform, AE Studio, and I got the feedback that I got, it tickled something in my brain that said, maybe that's where a fractional CEO comes from, right? That pairing of people. Maybe I'm just a good producer and I need someone with a bigger vision to help me grow that business. It was a total role reversal on what I've seen in business, but it was worth exploring, and it just opened up this great conversation with Perry and Frank. And I figured I'd throw that one out there too.
Yeah, that's it. Of all the roles, I haven't thought of that as much. I mean, by definition, if you have a board or informal or formal, right, in a sense, they're like a brain trust that kind of acts as like a super CEO, above the CEO, and they're only there part of the time. But the actual CEO being fractional, I had to think about that one. We
I
come
know,
back to that in a future session, just from
I
a,
know, really different.
that's a standpoint. All right, so we also want to include sometimes some questions. We'll just cover two today. One question that comes up is in response to statements that many who are very knowledgeable about AI, including you, have said, is that the more that we invoke or use or advance AI or artificial intelligence, the more that we need AGI, human intelligence, or, it's more important to be human, right? And so we'll start on this, but we'll probably come back to this multiple times. So what does human mean in the age of HI? I mean, what's just an initial thought or two you have about that? Because that comes up all the time. What does that mean? Well, I've been human. How can I be more human?
there's two things that really come to mind. So first things first is, I personally believe that critical thinking skills are not going out of style, guys. They're going to be more important now than they've ever been. And the reason why is because, right, again, this goes back to the idea that, oh, AI hallucinates and there's people who copy and paste, and everybody's seen stuff in the news of somebody who put in a college paper and the recitals were wrong, or whatever, the references were wrong, or an attorney who referenced a case that they got from AI that never existed, or everybody's heard of this kind of stuff. So if you haven't heard the disclaimer, please don't ever copy and paste, read it first, right? But the ability to look at something, to read it, to review it, and say to yourself, okay, that's not right, or that doesn't represent me, or that doesn't represent my views, or it didn't do this right. Actual critical thinking skills not only help when you get your output, but they're going to help you produce better output. And that's starting ahead of time.
Okay, well, to be clear then, just again, as an elaboration on the critical part, some people may associate critical with being negative. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about critical as in a critic in the older sense of the word. Nowadays, critics, again, has taken on this negative connotation.
Yep.
But a critic was someone who had expertise, right? Like a film critic, right? They had the background expertise, and they would provide both positive and negative comments depending on the film, right? So critic didn't automatically mean negative. And it's the same sense here when we're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about, examining closely, based on what I know, does this seem reasonable? Are there any issues with it? And we're talking issues of all kinds, everything from grammar to flow to, cohesive thinking, you name it, right?
Absolutely.
So I just want to make that distinction. When I'm talking about negative thinking, we're talking about examination and, again, this is within the realms of what I expected. Now, one caveat to that is that that's sometimes the way discoveries are made, because just because it came up with something that you didn't expect doesn't mean that it's not valid. It could be invalid, and the hallucinations are usually the invalid ones, right? It's like, really, that has nothing to do with this.
Sure.
Where'd that come from? But something could come out because these generative AIs like ChatGPT, like Perplexity, Grok, others, they've got a lot of knowledge, and they may have more knowledge. So there may be an aspect of it that we look at and say, well, I didn't expect that. But so then the follow-up question, and this is really important, right? First is question it.
Yep.
Don't just take it as is, right? Do the critical thinking to work through it and make sure it's reasonable. But if something unexpected comes out that you don't immediately think is, well, that's, that's wrong, or it's wrong just from a, reasoning standpoint or whatever, is do a little research on it. Maybe there's an interesting point there. So there's really two layers there. And it's definitely not just critical as in negative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, right, whether it's mistakes or whether it's just feedback that I never thought of, that's actually a big part of how I personally use AI. A lot of times I use it as a collaboration partner.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, one of the techniques that I use is I purposely say, here's the context. I tell it an entire story. I actually have a voice recording app, a transcription app on my phone. So on the drive in, I'll be thinking about something, I'll talk into my phone, and then I'll take that transcription, refine it a little bit, and then use that as my prompt to AI. But a lot of what I do very, very often is I will tell AI, I know I'm missing details that you'll need to provide me with the best results. Whatever additional questions you need to ask me interview style, one at a time, before you make your recommendations. And that conversation back and forth helps it determine, again, just pattern matching. How do I need to ask questions? What are the interviews I've seen in my, internet worth of scraping? It'll ask me questions that I would never have even thought to answer that it would want for input, and my results have improved.
All right, so I want you to say that again, the prompt, the type of prompt that you're talking about, because that's just so important. In addition to the early guidance or the first guidance about the style that you wanted in, or presenting case studies, or presenting background information, what should they also ask? Say that again. That's
Sure
just really
thing.
important.
Sure thing. Provide as many details and context as you possibly can, right? And it can get almost exhaustive at times, but don't be afraid to put them in there. And then when you're done, think about how you would have a conversation with a human that you were paying top dollar to get their feedback. And what I think of when I say that is, look, this is my perspective, but I am positive that there's going to be questions that you want answered that I haven't answered here. So please ask me those questions. And then here's the keywords that I've used: interview style, one at a time. And it will literally generate a series of questions and ask me one at a time. I'll answer them. We'll move on to the next question. And when we get to the bottom of AI's questions, it says, okay, now I'm ready to give you my recommendations. And that's made my results much, much better.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to repeat that because that's such good guys. I mean,
It's good
that's
stuff.
like a pro
Yeah,
tip for
definitely good
sure.
stuff.
All right, last, and we'll
To
make this
touch
one
the second
short.
point, to touch a second, I know
Okay.
we're back up against the clock. To be more human, I think, means human interaction. So there's one thing on, hey, how can I be more human in my interactions with people,
All
places?
right, you were making a point about this earlier.
Yeah. So I personally believe that in the age of AI, in-person events are going to make a comeback. I think Zoom has had its day. Of course, we're on Zoom now. Live streaming has had its day. Of course, we're live streaming right now. Recordings have happened, whatever. There's still going to be plenty of that. But getting in front of people and shaking hands and exchanging ideas in person is still so valuable, probably more valuable than it's ever been. And I think it's going to be at a premium. And if I can encourage anybody at all, please, I don't know if it's your chamber meeting or whether it's I've got nerd clubs that I go to, or gardening, or whatever it is. Get out there and interact with other people. Get off your computer. I put my phone. I turned my ringer off a couple years ago and never turned it back on because of notifications, the dehumanization of technology. I've just encouraged people as much as possible to unplug and go interact. There's plenty of time for tech in your life. Coming from somebody who's written code for about 25 years straight. Go be a human. It's helped me significantly. And I think it's going to be so much more valuable as we step forward.
Okay, cool. So the last one with all this stuff, and this will come up again at some points in the future, is with all these things that are happening, should I wait? And
Oh,
wait is covers a number of things. Should I wait to try it? Should I wait to include it in my business? What do people do with this? Do they
good,
do it now? Do they do it later? Or is this an interesting thing to know? But that's it? What?
good. Thank you. So my opinion, and I'm getting a lot of this. I'm seeing a lot of this. I'm seeing it in articles that people are sending me. Um, I've put out a couple of videos on this. If you're familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, it essentially is a line chart, line graph that outlines how people go crazy in their expectations of new technology, and then it crashes because it doesn't do whatever the inflated expectations for it, and then it finally hits this curve and they find profitability or usage in it. I think a lot of people are right now in that trough. AI was hyped up a lot, and a lot of people thought that, I don't know, they thought it was going to make tacos. And now they're sitting at their dinner table and they want tacos and they're mad because AI can't make them tacos. Nobody ever said that AI would make you tacos. Somebody lied, or you picked that up in conversation. I don't know where it came from. So there's a lot of disappointment, and I think that's turning some people off. But here's my response: should I wait? every business owner has to know, what they're doing in their business and how they're doing it. But if we concentrate on the principles and best practices of implementation for AI, it doesn't matter if you put it in now or in 6 months when they've had their next incremental improvement for AI. And what I've noticed about a lot of these technology implementations over time is that once they hit a plateau, they'll sit there for months or years or forever. We don't know when the next jump in the technology is going to come. But here's what I do know. I do know, and I can say with all confidence, that if you're concentrating on best practices and principles in solving problems in your business, the tools that are available in AI right now can provide you positive ROI tomorrow. So the only reason to wait is because, I don't know, you're afraid of it or you're uncomfortable. And if that's the case, find somebody you can trust and talk about it. My gut feeling is do it now and start benefiting from the ROI now. And that's got nothing to do with all the money that you can potentially make by digitizing your process and just tons of other downstream ideas. But just for now, right now, to get started, if you're not already started, put a chatbot on your website. Start using ChatGPT for your marketing campaigns or ideas or as a collaboration partner. Get yourself more comfortable with it and then grow from there. But yeah, if you're there's all kinds of ways to talk about monetizing and doing it right now if you're interested in that.
Awesome. Okay, we'll end on that note. Because I think the essence of what you said is just so incredibly valuable. The idea that, technology, new technologies, new things come on, all the time. Sometimes they're groundbreaking and truly transformative, like the idea of first, transistors and microelectronics to enabled computers and phones. And then there's the internet. Now we've got, artificial intelligence. But what it boils down to is, where do you need the improvements in your business, or where you could make improvements in your business or organization, or anything that even if you're doing personal stuff, what could AI do for you, like a digital assistant, non-human one, right? So great advice. Okay, folks, that's it for this week, or this particular session of AI Insights. We'll see you in a future session.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.